On 5 News, a special programme on the night terror came to Nice. At least 84 people are dead after a lorry ploughed into packed crowds on the promenade here last night. The attack caused sheer panic. Eyewitnesses say the truck appeared to deliberately mow down as many people as possible. The killer was eventually shot dead by police. He's been identified as this 31-year-old French-Tunisian man. The French struck a law at half-mast in Downing Street as the new Prime Minister condemns the attack.
If, as we fear, this was a terrorist attack, then we must redouble our efforts to defeat these brutal murderers who want to destroy our way of life.
Tributes here in Nice and around the world to those who lost their lives in a night of appalling violence. Hello, I'm Matt Barbette and welcome to a special 5 News programme live here from Nice, the scene of the deaths of 84 people at least last night, who gathered amongst thousands to celebrate the Bastille Day celebrations that have been celebrated across France with fireworks. Instead, they were killed in what seems to be the latest terror attack to rock this country and to shock the rest of the world. The attack was indiscriminate. A man driving a lorry for 2 kilometres along this promenade, killing men, women, the elderly and children. The attacker is believed to be a Tunisian national who'd been living in France and was already known to the police. Now, it happened around 10 o'clock last night, just a few hundred metres, as I say, from where I'm standing here in central Nice on the famous Promenade des Anglais. People were enjoying celebrations on France's National Day. A warning that Catherine Jones' report now does contain footage of before and after the attack.
This is how the horror unfolded. Just one man, his murderous weapon, a 20-ton truck. You can hear the panic and confusion, and sickeningly see how the truck accelerates into the crowd. Watch again and you'll see a motorcyclist screeching up alongside the vehicle. The rider jumps onto the cab, clinging to the side. There are gunshots, perhaps from the driver's cab or towards it. But nothing stops the truck. It ploughs on, through the people, through the screams. This is what it felt like to be in that crowd. The lorry arrived and smashed into everyone. Everyone, this man who was caught in the chaos says. I was 10 meters away, says this woman. What I saw will stay with me for the rest of my life. For a mile and a half along the seafront, the driver veered from side to side to kill and maim as many as possible. Until finally, in a hail of police gunfire, he was stopped and killed. He has been named as Mohamed Lahoueyesh Bouglel. This is his ID card, found in the lorry. Detectives have been searching the 31-year-old's flat. Known to the police as a criminal, not a potential terrorist, it's reported he'd become depressed after his marriage failed. This neighbour described him as frightening. He didn't have a frightening face, she says, but a look. His target was an event that had been filled with joy and national pride, and many had been posting online images to demonstrate that. A chance for French families to celebrate French values in defiance of a terrorist threat that has already brought so much pain to this country. And again, there is defiance, led by France's president. We are facing a long battle, François Hollande said, because we have an enemy that will continue to attack all the peoples, all the countries who possess freedom as an essential value. Once again, France must show courage in the face of an atrocity. Once again, this country must find ways to overcome its grief. But it is the injured victims and the loved ones of the dead who must find the greatest reserves of strength.
As we've heard, the driver was able to plough his vehicle for a mile and a half along this promenade, hitting people dozens of people before he was eventually stopped. Here's how it unfolded. It was around 10 o'clock last night when the large white lorry turned onto the promenade from a side street near a children's hospital. It would later treat over 50 children injured in the attack. At Magnon Beach, the first 2 victims were killed, a middle-aged Muslim woman and an unidentified man. The driver continued down the Promenade des Anglais. The bodies of 7 more people could be seen outside a local university building. Just over 100 metres further on, the lorry ploughed into a large crowd of people. And another 700 metres along, it drove off the walkway and back onto the street. It was here that the police then started shooting at the cab. The lorry began to accelerate, and in front of this pavilion, at least 20 more people were killed or wounded. Finally, the vehicle came to a stop outside the Casino du Palais. It's here that the driver was fatally shot by police officers after travelling a total of 2 kilometres. Just 2 days into her new job, and Theresa May, the Prime Minister, has been confronted with terrorism already so close to home. She's responded with a pledge of solidarity, promising to stand shoulder to shoulder with France. Her new Foreign Secretary, Boris Johnson, says the events represent a continuing threat to Europe. Our political editor, Andy Bell, has more now.
Today at Downing Street, the French tricolour flew at half-mast. Not for the first time, a British Prime Minister has expressed solidarity with France. But for this Prime Minister, it is the first time.
I'm shocked and saddened by the horrifying attack in Nice last night. Our hearts go out to the French people and to all those who've lost loved ones or been injured. The United Kingdom stands shoulder to shoulder with France today, as we have done so often in the past. If, as we fear, this was a terrorist attack, then we must redouble our efforts to defeat these brutal murderers who want to destroy our way of life. We must work with France and our partners around the world to stand up for our values and for our freedom.
6 years as Home Secretary mean Theresa May is familiar with the threat of terrorism. Today she kept to her schedule a visit to the Scottish First Minister in Edinburgh, a city by coincidence twinned with Nice. For her Foreign Secretary, this is also a first crisis to handle in the new job.
Obviously our thoughts are very much with the people of France and Nice, and an absolutely appalling incident. I think there'll be ministerial meetings later on today to discuss the implications for this country, if any, though I don't at this time know of any read across or implications for the UK. Clearly this represents a continuing threat. If this is a terrorist incident, as it appears to be, this represents a continuing threat to us in the whole of Europe, and we must meet it together.
In Westminster and Whitehall, they are showing their support and reflecting on a threat common to both countries.
Andy's in Downing Street now, and Andy, as if Mrs May's job wasn't hard enough already, this is a real test of her being Prime Minister.
Yes, Theresa May is now back here, having returned from Scotland. It is a test. I think at this stage it is much more about reviewing policy already in place rather than taking any new policy decisions. There was a meeting here this morning of the Special Emergency Committee known as COBRA. It was chaired by the Deputy National Security Advisor. It was officials and civil servants from different departments who were present for that meeting, not ministers, I understand, and they were very much reviewing what they knew about what had happened in Nice and working out essentially what help they might be able to provide to the French authorities. Also, the official terror threat level here in the UK has not been changed. It remains severe, which means a terrorist threat or a terrorist attack is considered highly likely. There is simply no specific evidence of any specific attack. Incidentally, also Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, he has said that he is going to be reviewing security in the City of London with the Metropolitan Police Commissioner. I also understand that Boris Johnson, the Foreign Secretary, who we saw in my report, he has been meeting with officials here in the Foreign Office as well, and has been kept up to date, as you would imagine, by officials on everything that's been going on in France. So yes, obviously the government administration taking a look at this, but very much reviewing the existing situation rather than any new policy decisions.
Andy, thank you very much indeed. Well, of course, as these school summer holidays approach, thousands of British families will be preparing to come here to France. 6 million of us travel to France every year. So should we be rethinking our plans now? Is it still safe to come to France on holiday? Olivia Kinsley has been trying to find out.
At St Pancras station in London today, taxis dropping off passengers carried a message of prayer for Nice. This is the gateway across the Channel Tunnel and to France. For some making that journey today, the holiday excitement is now shadowed by fear.
Are you worried at all about going to France after what happened in Nice last night?
Of course I am.
You feel nervous?
Yeah, my daughter does. These days, you're not safe anywhere really, are you?
Worried, but just got to be vigilant. Can't change your life too much, you know.
We'll just go.
France is one of Britain's most popular holiday destinations, second only to Spain, with more than 6 million of us going there each year. With the Euro football tournament pulling in hundreds of thousands more and the school holidays about to start, 2016 was headed for a bumper year. But after this latest terrorist attack, will tourists still want to go there? Egypt used to be hugely popular, but after a plane was brought down by a bomb last year, holiday bookings are down by 69%, and the Foreign and Commonwealth Office is still advising British travellers not to go there. The government is not warning against travel to France, and the Association of British Travel Agents says that could make all the difference. They doubt French tourism will be hit long term.
We saw with the London bombings in 2005 that the immediate impact actually was, people were very nervous about travelling, but actually over the longer term, people, I think, felt a sense of solidarity and wanted to stand shoulder to shoulder. They didn't want it to impact on their travel plans. People recognise that if it's a thriving city like Paris, like London, actually it's a working city as well as a tourist city, and they want to carry on working and operating as normal.
But for now in France and outside the French embassy in London, the immense shock is still sinking in, with people laying candles to show their terrible sadness for this latest attack on our friends overseas. Olivia Kinsley, 5 News.
Still to come on this special live programme from Nice, we'll hear from the Britons who witnessed the attack here last night and managed to escape with their lives. That story and more coming up after the break. Welcome back. You're watching a special 5 News programme live from Nice after what President Francois Hollande is calling a terror attack here last night. This time of year, when the sun is out, it's normally heaving along the Promenade des Anglais, the beach full of people soaking up the rays. Today, no one is on the beach. The promenade is closed after 84 people at least lost their lives last night at the hands of a man driving a truck through crowds of thousands. Witnesses say the driver zigzagged through those crowds in an attempt to kill as many people as possible. Children could be heard screaming as terrified families ran for their lives. Many people ran straight into the sea to get out of the way. Dominic Reynolds reports now on those lucky enough to escape and those who weren't so fortunate.
It was an amazing atmosphere. So many people, families, young children out celebrating their National Day, and just a really kind of festive spirit.
Ben was on the promenade last night and on holiday, celebrating with the French on their National Day. He thought the gunfire he heard metres away was fireworks, until he saw the crowd of people running towards him.
We were on that spot. If we'd kept walking, we essentially could have been one of those casualties. We probably brushed shoulders with some of the people that were mowed down. It was horrible. It was, it still probably hasn't really sunk in, to be perfectly honest with you. Just seeing the terror on people's faces, and there was a young girl who was inside the storeroom with us, and she was just in tears. She was trying to reach her mother, but she couldn't get in touch with her.
These are the first victims identified, 51-year-old Sean Copeland and his 11-year-old son Brody. They were on a family vacation with Sean's wife and 2 other children. 21-year-old Victoria Savchenko was with a friend when the truck careered towards them. Today, tributes began to build up around the city as people tried to piece together what happened. That fatal journey started here. It's where the lorry turned onto the promenade. It's the Children's Hospital. And minutes later, it was treating dozens of young people. Has the hospital ever had to deal with anything like this before?
No, this is the most extraordinary event like this that we've had. We've been trained, of course, in the past months for a response team, so we were ready because this area, unfortunately, was on the red mark for terrorist attack in France after Paris.
When terror arrives in a truck, it doesn't discriminate. The youngest person treated here is 6 months old.
Well, Dom is at the Children's Hospital, just a couple of kilometres around the bay from where I'm stood. And Dom, we just had an update from the hospital. Bring us the latest.
We have, Matt, 84 dead, 202 injured, 52 of those are critically injured. The numbers really are startling, aren't they? The hospital behind me is the Children's Hospital. Just here, 30 people under the age of 18 are being treated.
And Dom, details are starting to emerge, unfortunately, about those people who lost their lives. The first names I saw were of an American father and his son who were here on holiday and wanted to see the Bastille Day celebrations.
That's right, fathers and sons. There's reports of a German teacher and her students. It was groups of people together. And as I said there, in a truck, terror is indiscriminate. I'm told by representatives of the hospital here that psychological support is something they're focusing on because of all the parents here waiting for news. Stephanie, who you saw in my report there, told me of an extraordinary scene overnight whereby all night mums and dads continued to arrive at reception of the hospital looking for their lost children, hoping they'd find them here, praying that they'd be okay.
Dom, thank you very much indeed. Well, last night's massacre, because that's what it was, is the third major terror attack in France inside just 18 months. Of course, there was the Charlie Hebdo attacks in January last year, followed by several attacks across Paris in November, largely centred on the Bataclan theatre. But the use of a lorry as a mass murder weapon has raised fresh concerns about the country's security. France's Prime Minister warned that the country can expect similar attacks in the future. It's currently in a state of emergency that goes all the way back to last November. As Layla Hayes reports now, the threat level in the UK is also being reviewed at the moment.
Another attack in France, but this time with a very different weapon. They've already faced guns and bombs, but the use of a truck to kill so many is an entirely new threat. Ever since Islamic State militants struck Paris 8 months ago, France has been under a state of emergency. Today, the French Prime Minister said the country will have to get used to terror. We have moved into a new era, he said, and France will have to live with terrorism. We have to come together. Earlier this week, France had warned of the danger of further attacks from Islamist militants. So-called Islamic State hasn't said it's behind these murders, but it has targeted France on several occasions. And in the last few months, a number of countries have been attacked. In March this year, 2 bombs at Brussels airport and another on the metro killed 32 people. In June, 49 died in Orlando when a gunman opened fire at the Pulse nightclub. And also in June, a gun and bomb attack at Istanbul's Atatürk airport left 41 dead. Experts say the threat from ISIS is spreading.
I believe things are getting worse, and they are likely to continue to get worse because the trigger, the motivation for these terror attacks has not been addressed by the international community. Without completely stopping society from going about its daily business, I'm afraid there will always be an opportunity for determined terrorists.
Here in Britain, police chiefs are now asking all UK forces to review major events in the coming week. Security experts say the threat here is very real.
No, we're not safe. We're lucky we've got the English Channel, which offers us some form of protection, but we've also got a large number of jihadists who are back in the UK from Syria. We don't know who many of them are.
In Nice, they're struggling to understand how and why this could have happened. And the fear is there could be more attacks to come. Layla Hayes, 5 News.
Let's get an update now on the Britons caught up in the events here last night. Frankie McCamley is at the Foreign Office in London. Frankie, bring us up to speed there.
Well, Matt, what we know is what the Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson said this morning, that 1 Briton was injured in the attack last night, but that number is likely to rise. The Foreign Office have also told us that a team of 12 have been sent to Nice. What they'll be doing is speaking to the authorities there, helping British nationals, and also looking around the hospitals to see if any others may be wounded. Now, if you are worried about someone who may have been caught up in the attack, a loved one, a family member, then the number to call is on your screen. It's 020 7008 0000. And if you are in France, the advice is to get in touch with your friends and family and let them know you're safe.
Frankie, thank you very much indeed. Well, Kathy Jones is here with me in Nice. And Kathy, you've been here for much of the day. Just describe the atmosphere for me.
Well, I think one comment from a lady I spoke to really summed it up. She came down here, she's a local lady, she came down to watch the fireworks, and she looked at the crowd. She says she saw the happy children and she thought, is this a target? Is something going to happen? She went home at 10 o'clock thinking that nothing had, and then she woke up to the news. Her husband said to me, c'est normal. It's normal for us to think like that now. So there is anger, there's lots of talk of the politics in the subdued atmosphere around here in the cafes, but most of all there is sadness. People clutch at their hearts, they clutch at their stomachs as they try to explain to me how sad they feel for the victims and for those who are bereaved.
Kathy, thank you very much indeed. Well, coming up on 5 News tonight, in an hour's time, we'll be back with all the very latest developments here from Nice, as well as reaction both in Britain and around the world to last night's shocking events. But that is it for now. I'll see you at 6:30. We'll leave you some of the images of the tragic things that have happened just in the last 24 hours. Bye-bye.